am extremely honored to introduce Lila Rose as our esteemed keynote speaker this year. Lila Rose is the founder and president of Live Action, a pro-life organization committed to revealing the truth about abortion and advocating for the rights of society's most vulnerable, the unborn. She established Live Action in 2003 at the age of 15, driven by a mission to expose the harsh realities of abortion. Lila began her work by collaborating with friends to deliver pro-life presentations and raise awareness about the sanctity of life. Her organization, Live Action, boasts the largest online presence in the pro-life movement, reaching 40 million per month and over 2.3 billion lifetime video views. Live Action has become a powerful force for change. The organization not only transforms public opinion on abortion, but also saves countless lives and drives political action nationwide in the fight to protect the unborn. Lila Rose was called Messenger-in-Chief of the pro-life movement by Vice News and the face of the millennial anti-abortion movement by The Atlantic. She's the author of Fighting for Life, Becoming a Force for Change in a Wounded World, and hosts the Lila Rose podcast. She also has received an honorary doctorate in her Christian ethics from Franciscan University. Lila has devoted her life to ending abortion and making America a more welcoming place for families. Please join me in welcoming Lila Rose.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for that very lovely introduction. Maria Victoria, all the incredible organizers of the Cardinal O'Connor Conference for Life. Can we just give a big round of applause for the incredible organizers? And I just need to say how impressed I am by this incredibly beautiful room. Not just the room is beautiful, most importantly, you are all beautiful. This room is packed. This is their most attended conference, I think, in the history of the conference, and that's because of your passion and your determination to fight for life. So thank you all for being here. Can we do one more round of applause for each other? Thank you for being here. And I just need to shout out my Sisters for Life. Where are you? Are they down? They're down here. There they are. Of course, our beautiful Sisters for Life. Thank you so much for being you. I have such admiration and gratitude for you. Thank you. We love you. So this is a great room. I'm so looking forward to sharing with you 3 key things this morning. First of all, I want to talk to you about the moment that we're in, which is, yes, a war. We're in a war right now. And particularly, I want to speak to the media war, a war for hearts and minds. I also want to talk to you about the end game that we're fighting for. Many of you are here because you are passionately pro-life, or at least you're curious about this issue. But what are we aiming towards? And clarifying the vision for what we are aiming towards. Because I think sometimes when you're in the middle of an incredibly intense battle, it can be easy to lose sight of what we need to achieve. And finally, I want to speak to a new revolution that we need in this country, in this world, in the hearts of both men and women, in order to achieve the ultimate vision that we're aiming towards, especially for those of us here who are servants of Jesus Christ, which is the work to bring his kingdom into our hearts and to do his will in this life as we aim towards the next. And so, starting with the media war, I wanted to share a quick throwback story to my days in DC when I was a younger activist running through the streets and the halls of Congress trying to get them to do stuff, which is typically what activists are aiming at. What do we do? What do we do to get the politicians to do the things that we need them to do? And so I was founding the Live Action office in Washington, D.C. I had been in California. I'd been attending UCLA, moved out to the cold, bitterly missed my California life of walking around in flip-flops all the time, was getting accustomed to DC, and was learning the ways that the political machinery worked. And I'll never forget this meeting that I had with some very big VIPs. It included the chief of staff for the Speaker of the House of Representatives at the time, and others that were huddled together in this kind of like basement of a coffee shop on Capitol Hill where they do these secret meetings. There's a little insider info right there. And so we're all sitting around this table. There were some activists there, myself, there were some big important people, there were some strategist type folks, and we were meeting because Live Action had recently released undercover footage. We run Live Action News, undercover footage exposing the sex trafficking of minors that was being aided and abetted by Planned Parenthood clinics, ultimately using birth control and abortion to keep the little girls on the street. So these were Planned Parenthood managers actually agreeing to give special discounts to a self-professed pimp of underage girls in order to get them birth control and later on abortions. Absolutely horrific footage. Some of this footage was filmed in, not too far away, New Jersey, and so this footage was making the rounds. This footage was being talked about by Congress at the time. All this to say, there was an initiative at the time to defund Planned Parenthood for the first time, because that had not happened at the federal level at all yet in the history of our politics since it had become funded. So we're all sitting there talking about this, and of course, the people that are supposed to be doing the defund, because we had a majority in Congress at the time, the Republican pro-lifers had this majority in Congress, they were saying, yes, we know we have momentum, and we know we should do this, we know we should defund them because they're getting taxpayer dollars. But I was sitting there and we're like, the public, these videos are going viral, there's all this outcry, you just gotta remove them from the budget. Don't put them in the budget. Make sure there's a line that says that if you're an abortion provider, you can't receive taxpayer funds, and then send that through reconciliation, which is where the budget, the Senate and the House decide how they're gonna finalize the budget to send it to the president. And the Speaker of the House ultimately said, the Speaker's staff ultimately said, the problem is, guys, if we do this and it goes to this fight and it gums up the budget process, they're gonna blame it on us, and it's gonna be on the front page of Politico that it was the Republicans who gummed up the budget process. And I remember sitting there thinking, and this is the reason why he couldn't take this next step towards defunding. And I remember sitting there just being in awe of the incredible power of not the US Congress, the incredible power of Politico. It's like, what even is Politico? I mean, we know what Politico is here in the Beltway, but people in America, the rest of the country, unless you're like really a hardcore Politico yourself, you're not reading Politico. But this man was so afraid of what the media would say about him and his boss that this was the reason that they were thinking about folding on the issue and not even fighting it. And I realized what I was kind of becoming to see more and more clearly, the power, the absolute power of media, the absolute power of a message, the absolute power of a narrative to not only shape hearts and minds, but to direct control over the whole entire political proceedings that happen in this country. And it made me more determined than ever that we had to not just fight the media war, but we had to discover and employ the tactics and strategies to win the media war. This is a battle for hearts and minds. The pro-life movement's fight to protect the preborn, to establish a country that is welcoming and friendly to families, that sees children as gifts. This is a battle for hearts and minds. We have to change people's hearts and minds who are confused by the relentless propaganda coming from the pro-abortion side that it's not a baby, it's not a life, abortion is healthcare, reproductive freedom, the endless euphemisms and false phrases that have been used in order to justify abortion and promote it as mainstream. And so how do we do this? Well, we have a huge challenge in our movement. Well, everyone here in this room, I'm going to guess, at least has an understanding that what the science shows us, life doesn't begin at birth, it begins at fertilization. And I'm caveating in case we have some pro-choice friends here, which I'm very glad you're here. If you're here, thank you for being here. But the science is very clear when life begins. It begins at the moment of fertilization. A unique single cell embryo comes into existence, just needs time and nourishment to grow. It's a whole human being. That's established, that's an established fact. And the pro-life movement's message is simple, that if you are a human being, you have human rights. Human rights are universal and inalienable. Every single human has human rights. You don't get some less rights because you're less of a human. All humans are equal in value. And so as the pro-life movement is asserting this, we have to remember that the victims of abortion, the primary victim of abortion, is totally unseen. They are hidden in the wombs of their mothers, and then when they're killed by abortion, they're taken to an abortion clinic or killed via an abortion pill, completely hidden from the view of course, the public, media, whoever it is. They are a hidden victim. And they have no voice. Their vocal cords, many of these children have not even been developed, even if they were born, and those that were old enough to be born that could cry, they're never gonna get a chance to cry or take their first breath because they're being killed. So how do we speak for them? We have to tell the story of who they are. And I want to share with you a clip of what this looks like in the media war. Because the pro-abortion side is relentlessly dehumanizing the baby. I was just doing a debate recently for a YouTube channel called Jubilee, and I was debating this woman who was, self-professed pro-choice activist. She runs this whole organization in Los Angeles, and she was saying, she said, it's not a baby, it's a clump of cells. It's a clump of cells. And I said, okay, what are you? Well, what am I? Are we cells? Oh yeah, then we're clumps of cells too. Yeah, oh, okay. And I said, well, it doesn't sound a little dehumanizing that you're saying clump of cells for the baby? You don't just call me a clump of cells, you call me, I hope, a woman, a human. And she said, it is dehumanizing. I know it's dehumanizing. And I think in a moment of honesty, she said that, but they are dehumanizing relentlessly the child in order to persuade society that it's not a baby, don't worry about it, and just prioritize the so-called bodily autonomy of the woman. By the way, we do have bodily autonomy, but our bodily autonomy doesn't mean we have the right to destroy someone else's, right? Which is what every abortion does. So this video that I'm going to share with you that the amazing live action team put together, and there's a lot of live action team members in this room. I hope so anyways, there's some over here. Big shout out to live action. I'm so grateful for this amazing, amazing team I get to work with. This is a sample of a series that we did, a recently released campaign. It's ongoing, so there's a lot of new exciting stuff coming. But Face to Face is a vehicle to tell the stories that are not being told. And the video you're about to see, this series has already been viewed, I think we're at 40 million times online in just the last few months. The idea here is insert into the lies of the media narrative and using the power of social media and new media, tell the story of the baby. And this is a approach that we took. I'm gonna share this. You're actually gonna hear from one of the people in this video, I think later on today, which is gonna be amazing, but we can play the video now.
Could you see? Could you see that those were babies?
I can answer that for myself. I cannot speak for any other abortionist in the world. Did I know those were human beings? Absolutely. I didn't care. I did not care.
I remember sitting down, this was several months back, with Melissa, who you will hear from, I believe, later today, other abortion survivors. There are hundreds of them in this country because abortion sometimes fails in very, 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 very rare cases. There's 1 million abortions a year. In extremely rare cases, that abortion will fail, and in extremely rare case, that child will be killed after birth and someone will rescue that child. Melissa was one of those children. She survived a failed abortion attempt. And when their stories are told, it busts the false narrative of the pro-abortion side wide open. They no longer can stand on this false premise that this is not a baby, this is not a life, because here is the baby, now a grown woman, because she was always her. Melissa was Melissa, maybe she hadn't been named yet before birth, as much as she is after. It's the same human life at a different stage of development. And that entire lie is dismantled simply by her story. And so we have to remember that it's a media war and it's a message war. It's a war of us being willing to tell the stories of the child that is killed by abortion. It's also tell the stories of the women that may feel pressured or coerced, or the women who regret their abortions, the men, the lost fatherhood of a whole generation of men whose children were aborted. We have to tell these stories. And so Face to Face is one vehicle to do that. And I think the application for us in this room today is that we have to realize that we can change hearts and minds if we're willing to tell the stories, share the, not so much even arguments, but the pro-life case, have the discussion with people, and be willing to speak the truth in love. And to do this again and again, even when it's imperfect, even if we feel like we're gonna make mistakes, even if we feel like maybe we're not making as much progress as we wish, this person, this friend of ours seems so locked in on being in support of abortion, continue to lovingly share the truth and also back it up with prayer. Prayer for the person you're trying to reach, prayer for the thing that you're trying to accomplish in speaking the truth, because God's grace works so beautifully but also mysteriously when it comes to the changing of hearts and minds. So it's a media war, and we must change hearts and minds. Next up, I need to talk about our end game. This is really important because we were at the March for Life yesterday. It was so exciting, hundreds of thousands of people. It's so dynamic, energetic, it's electric. We had all these politicians there. We had the President of the United States give a video address. The Vice President of the United States was there. The Speaker of the House was there. The head of the Senate majority was there. They were all there, all three branches. And all two branches, excuse me, but our executive branch and our Congress was there, and they can get the job done. And so hopefully the Supreme Court won't stop them, because the Supreme Court's pretty good right now. So we are all, I wish Amy Coney Barrett should have been there yesterday, but that's okay, that would have looked bad for her. So the point is, though, they were there, and they were there saying the pro-life message. So where's the action, guys? What's the end game? The end game is that we need complete legal protection for every human being's right to life in this country. In other words, we need to abolish abortion. We need to abolish abortion. A child in the womb in this country has no legal rights, virtually none at the federal level, and in many states, none. They can be killed up until the moment of birth for any reason. And when the Supreme Court overruled Roe v. Wade and Dobbs v. Jackson, they weren't saying that abortion is okay for the states to do it. They were saying we're turning this back into the hands of the people, into the states. But they didn't say in the Supreme Court case decision that the states can go then legalize killing babies per se. They kind of left that ambiguous, right? And so when you hear this talking point from people on presumably the pro-life side saying, well, it's the states' issue, let the states do what they want, it's the democracy that gets to decide, let the states vote on this. No democracy has the right to vote for the death of an innocent person like a mob. That is not a democracy's right. Human beings, innocent human beings in our country, under the 14th Amendment, have the right to something called, to our Constitution, have the right to something called equal protection under the law. Equal protection under the law is meant to be granted to all people in this country, and if you're a human, you're a person, so born and unborn, all people in this country, and that means that you have the right to not be killed without due process, because there's actually maybe the death penalty in that state, and you've tried in a court of law, you're convicted by a room of your peers, and maybe you're given in sentencing at the death penalty. Okay, maybe, but if you're an unborn baby, you're innocent. That hasn't happened, obviously, and you have a right to life like everybody else in this room. So just as a thought experiment, if my state of California, which is a disaster in many ways right now, I love my state, we're fighting for it, that's another speech, another day, another story. But if my state of California decided, hey, we really do not like, let's pick a person in this room, our beautiful Elizabeth, who is helping host this conference, we're gonna vote as a state whether Elizabeth lives or dies. Ridiculous. California does not have the constitutional right to vote whether Elizabeth lives or dies, or whether I live or die. There's no right to do that. And so when these states have these ballot initiatives that say, well, the babies are gonna live or die, let's see who votes for this, they don't have the right to do that. Abortion is already unconstitutional. And so the federal government has a role to play in establishing a law at the federal level, and we also should beef this up with state laws too, because there's state laws against murder. But if the states are not doing their job and protecting innocent Americans from the murder of others, then yes, there is a role for the federal government and certainly the Supreme Court to get involved. And so we need to remember that the 14th Amendment says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or protection without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. No state has the right to do that. This is our Constitution. This is already decided. This does not need to be litigated more. This has already been decided. We all have a shared right to life. Every single one of us, born and unborn. Abortion is already unconstitutional. And so the end game of the pro-life movement is to abolish abortion, ensure that we have laws that are enforceable to protect the rights of the preborn. Are we doing this? Some states have done this. States like Texas have virtually done this, and it's incredible. Lives have been saved. There are children living and breathing today. There are tens of thousands of them who would not be alive if Texas had not banned abortion. Huge shout out to Texas. There are other, there's some Texans here. I don't want to belabor this point, but I need to say one more thing about this. It is essential that us as activists, advocates, people interested in law, in politics, in education, in media, whatever it is, that we are very clear on this. Abortion is already unconstitutional. We must make abortion illegal. We must protect the preborn. They deserve it. And I want to say one more thing to encourage all of you. There is this mindset right now, it's a false media narrative that, oh, if you ban abortion, people don't want that. They hate that. When these state initiatives happened and the ballot initiatives were done in over a dozen states, so in over a dozen states in the last 2 years, had ballot initiatives to directly ask the people, should we have constitutional amendments to protect abortion, right? And in many of these states, most of them, horribly, the people would vote maybe 60%, yes, we want to have a constitutional amendment in our state constitution to protect abortion rights. Reproductive rights usually was how it would be worded, right? Incredibly misleading, by the way, representations of what these laws would do to the voters. They were all crafted, all of them, by the pro-abortion side. So they crafted these things to present to the voters like, do you want to protect reproductive freedoms in your state, especially in cases of medical emergency? I mean, things like this, right? And they're presenting this as a vote to the voters of the state, and the voters of the state then get inundated by literally tens of millions of dollars. They put tens of millions of dollars into little states like Missouri, like little media markets, not like Missouri, we love Noah on our teams from Missouri, go Missouri, we love Missouri. But like these are small media markets. And the pro-abortion side, literally George Soros would sign over $5 million of his personal dollars to spend on pro-abortion ads in Little Missouri in order to get abortion put in the state constitution. This is the game they're playing. But the way they do that is they lie to the voters about what these laws do. They permit abortion until birth. And they use these heartbreaking horror stories of these very rare cases saying that if women don't get the abortions, then they're gonna die. That's completely false, by the way. There are thousands of medical experts and OBGYNs who say you can care for women, even in high-risk pregnancies, and care for both mother and child. And in rare cases, you may need to do an early delivery, but you still fight for the life of that child. You don't kill that child via an abortion. So abortion is not medically necessary. But that message was not getting out in these states. So this is the good news, though. When people are asked their opinion on abortion, and part of the question includes a description of what, very briefly, that abortion entails, the poll results dramatically change. This is a really important point, and it should give us even a clearer vision about the power of showing the truth of abortion and educating people. And I want to read to you an example of this. So this was a Trafalgar, a huge polling company, very mainstream company that we worked with in Florida, because Florida was having this ballot initiative process, amendment to their potential constitution, a potential amendment to their constitution that would have legalized abortion until birth. Ron DeSantis, praise God for this, got up and went and fought. He fought, and he raised, I think, over 10 million, maybe $20 million himself to fight this amendment. He did something that virtually no other governor had done in California to fight for life in his state in this very meaningful way. Anyways, we did this poll in Florida, and we asked this question: should abortion procedures that involve starving the child to death be prohibited? That was the question in the poll. Over 1,000 people asked, Republican, Democrat, men, women, all different backgrounds. Should abortion procedures that involve starving the child to death be prohibited? Now, what abortion procedure involves starving the child to death? It's the abortion pill, which is the most common abortion procedure in this country right now. Pills are administered to the mother, and they starve the developing child of nutrients. They cut off the nutrient supply to the baby, and the baby starves to death. 58% of voters in Florida said, 59% of voters in Florida said yes, prohibit that abortion because they were actually told what it was. And the numbers went up for other kinds of abortion procedures. So we were seeing incredible, and it was only 25% that said no. So, and that's just one simple question on a poll. In a purple state, that's not like a hardcore conservative state, it's kind of a mix, right? The incredible power of telling people what they're actually voting on, of telling people what abortion actually is. So we need to focus and double down on education, on changing hearts and minds, and then keep our vision loud and clear to our elected officials that no, it's not enough to just save some lives. It's not enough to, just do one, show up at a March for Life and speak. I'm sorry. Thank you for being here. I'm so happy you're here at this March for Life to speak. I'm so grateful you're here. Your job is to legislate, to protect fundamental rights, especially constitutionally protected rights, especially for our most vulnerable, our unborn brothers and sisters in the womb. We need a new revolution in this country around sex. And ultimately, it's a revolution of love. The sexual revolution upended our view, not just of sex, but of love, of family, of the relationship between men and women. This was a revolution that was years in the making, that obviously happened and really tore the fabric of relationships in this country over 50, 60 years ago. And what the sexual revolution did when it came to this country is it ultimately said sex is not about love and marriage. You can have sex without commitment. And it said sex is not about children. Sex should not bring children into the world, especially if you're not feeling it. And so you have the right to have sex as long as there's consent with whomever you want, as long as they consent, commitment, fidelity, love, romance even. Those things don't matter if all you want is to act out on an urge. And you have the right to not be pregnant, period. And so even if you engage in the activity that is known to make one pregnant, again, go back to what science shows us about how the reproductive systems are designed and what they're there for. But if you use your reproductive systems and you happen to get pregnant, then you have the right to have an abortion because you have the right to not be pregnant, period, despite activities that you were engaged in. Complete upending of natural law, morality, science of how even our bodies work, destroying the proper view and order of sex. And there's a lot of people hurting because of this. I'm not gonna go into the litany of hurts, but we could talk about porn addictions. We could talk about divorce. We could talk about broken marriages. We could talk about loneliness. We could talk about children being raised in single-parent households and the struggle that single parents endure. We could talk about the harm of birth control, both physically on women and emotionally and mentally. We could talk about the over 60 million children who have been killed since the sexual revolution in the name of freedom. There's a cost to this. And so what do we need to do in response? We need to assert a new revolution, a revolution of love, a revolution of commitment, a revolution of saying, I want what's best for you. I'm not going to use your body for my pleasure and discard you at the end, or even destroy the body of the new child conceived in what should have been love, but instead conceived in lust. I'm not going to discard your body and use your body. The revolution of love says, I love your whole self, body and soul. I want your best for both your body and soul. And I'm willing to even sacrifice myself for you, body and soul. That is the message of our Creator, our Lord and Savior. That's what He modeled for us. So Christians, more than anyone else, should understand love. Christians, more than anyone else, should understand what it means to love, because our Savior modeled this for us to the point of walking up to His death, putting His body on a cross, offering His body for us to the point of death, excruciating death, so that we could live eternally in love with Him. That is our faith. and the natural order of the design of our bodies and the creation of man and woman, male and female, to bring life into the world is a beautiful, beautiful thing that we can celebrate. And there's a moral order that doesn't just apply to Christians, it applies to every human being because of human nature about how we are to interact with each other. And that moral order includes a rejection of sexual anarchy and instead an embrace of a revolution of love. And so I wanted to end with this because I think the ultimate endgame of the pro-life movement, the ultimate solution to the human rights tragedy that we are facing of abortion has to be this revolution of love. It has to be a return to seeing the other person, not as an ends, not as a means to an end, not as an object for our own pleasure or use, not as an enemy in the case of the child in the womb to be rejected, but in seeing the other as a beautiful gift, as someone that we can love. And seeing sex again, not as this is about my immediate pleasure, but sex as an incredible gift for the unity of two people that choose each other for life, a man and a woman in a marriage, and for the incredible opportunity to procreate, bring a new human life into existence. If we can do that, if we can establish a revolution of love in this country, and we first do that by living that ourselves, we will end abortion almost overnight. 9 out of every 10 women who have abortions are unmarried. Abortion is virtually a single-person problem because they're struggling to find family. They're not living in family, in a marriage. Marriage's destruction has led to the abortion crisis in this country. And the advent of contraception as the solution to everything, basically, safe sex, use contraception, you're good, has also led to the crisis of abortion. 50% of women who have abortions were using contraception the month that they got pregnant. Contraception creates this sense of safety that is for an action that's not loving or safe. And then when pregnancy happens, they think, okay, now I will just deal with this by getting an abortion. Planned Parenthood, of course, is an entire feeder system for sexual promiscuity, for sexual anarchy. And so the last thing I'm going to leave you with are the words from our Lord. What better person to speak to us this morning? And he is addressing his disciples. And this was in the readings today, and also the psalm today. The psalm, go out to all the world and tell the good news. And our Lord says, this is in Mark 16, Jesus appeared to the 11 and said to them, go into the whole world and proclaim the gospel to every creature. The gospel is a gospel of love, and we can make a revolution of love by living by his gospel and sharing his gospel of life and love. Thank you all so much. I'm not leaving because we're doing Q&A now, which I'm really excited about. So a mic has been placed in the center of the room. Whoever would like, please come up. I would love to take questions.
My name is Luke Woodyard from the University of Notre Dame. And my question is, the future of life and truth seems bright, obviously. So to my question, after his powerful speech yesterday, is J.D. Vance's future presidency and successful vice presidency the future of the pro-life revolution?
Thank you for the question. It was Luke, right? Thank you for the question, Luke. So you're asking, is J.D. Vance's potential future presidency and his vice presidency, is that part of the future of the pro-life movement? So it absolutely can be, and I profoundly hope that it will be. J.D. Vance is a Catholic convert. I'm a Catholic convert. I mean, that's amazing. I love that. And and I think, I was watching his family, on our inauguration day, this beautiful family, and I think he said beautiful words yesterday, really beautiful words, J.D. Vance said. during the campaign cycle, just being real here, he said some things that went against Catholic moral teaching, and he said them as if they were his position. And you don't have to do that as a politician, by the way. You can say, well, this is what people are saying, and I'm going to legislate, this person is legislating that way. I don't agree with that. That's not what I support in the case of a VP with a president. Obviously, that can be tricky, very tricky. But he said during the campaign season that the president supported access to the abortion pill, and they weren't going to touch access to the abortion pill, and that he supported that. So there were some really disturbing things and negative things that were said, compromises that seemed to be made that didn't need to be made, by the way. I don't buy this thing of you have to make all these compromises to be successful. Look at Governor DeSantis. He won by a landslide his reelection campaign in a purple state, over 1 million votes, a historic amount. He beat even President Trump in a number of counties that formerly went blue. He's this Republican governor with a heartbeat law. Most abortions are illegal, including most chemical abortions in Florida. And President Trump is out there saying, I don't like Ron DeSantis' law. I don't like this law at all. And then J.D. Vance is like, yeah, we have to support access to abortion pills. It's stupid. Let's be real. It's stupid. So I love J.D. Vance. I think he's wildly talented, and we have to pray for him and urge him publicly. It's like, come on, J.D. Don't go the dark side. It's like, when Luke Skywalker, it's these pivotal moment, what are you gonna do? And, if he's our Luke Skywalker, let's pray for him at minimum, okay? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julian from St. Ignatius College Prep, Chicago, Illinois. And when I have these discussions with my pro-choice friends and they bring up you have a heartbeat at 7 weeks, but before that, what happens? What's the most clear and concise way to counter that? Because, yeah.
Well, technically, the heart first beats at 3.5 weeks from fertilization. So it's around 7 weeks, you can first hear it on ultrasound. And that's 7 weeks usually from LMP, so there's different kind of ways to date a pregnancy. But ultimately, fertilization is the first moment of any of our beginning, and that's when a single cell comes into an existence. You have a whole unique and distinct genetic code. You are a whole body. You're a single cell body. You're really, really, really small, but you're all there. Hair color, eye color, your future height, all of these, tens of thousands of characteristics are already determined, and you're rapidly growing at that point. So yes, you don't have your heart yet. It's not beating yet. But you are your whole body, and you are still you. And the science is clear on this. So you could say, listen, I know remember that book, A Person's a Person, No Matter How Small, by Dr. Seuss? I don't know who's read that book. Honestly, it's such a profound book. And philosophically speaking, it's a tiny speck, and all the the little creatures of the book are like, it's not a human, it's not a creature. They're not real because it was a speck, you couldn't see it, but you're still you at the moment of fertilization. That's when you become you, actually, for the first time. So that's what the science shares. And so we can't, as grown adults, say that, well, because that tiny, tiny child, human life, is not developed yet, therefore it's okay to kill it, right? Because that's the pro-choice argument. It's like, well, they're so little, come on, they're just one cell or just a small clump of cells. And it's like, okay, but by that logic, if you extend that logic to anything else really, with moral ethics, if you extend that logic to the fact that a newborn is much smaller and less developed than an adult, right? They do not have, even the consciousness of a newborn is much more limited than the consciousness that you'll develop as an adult. They don't have the active capacity for reasoning, for speech, all of these things. They're still just as much as a human. It's just as much wrong to kill a newborn as an adult, right? So your level of development, your biological development as a human, doesn't determine your value or your rights. And then your dependency, they'll say, well, they're dependent on the mother. It's in the mother's body. Yes, they are dependent on their mother, but your dependency as a human does not determine your rights or change your rights. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Noah from University of Mary, and my question is, does graphic and disturbing images of abortion have a place in pro-life messaging, and if so, when is that applicable?
Thank you, Noah. Great question. Do graphic and disturbing images have a place to play? Why are they graphic and disturbing? Right? These images of children who have been aborted are graphic and disturbing because abortion's pretty graphic and disturbing. It involves killing a baby and a broken body, a destroyed body of a human. So it's pretty horrible to look at. So it's not so much that we want to show graphic images as much as we want to help people understand that abortion's horrible. It's violent, it's destructive. Even if, by the way, somehow magically in some theoretical universe, abortion didn't look horrible, it would still be horrible because you're ending the life of an innocent human being, and that's morally wrong. But it also is usually when something is like theoretically horrible because of moral law, and in real life, and with all the consequences of real life, it will often look horrible too, right? So it does look horrible too. So all this to say, I think people need to see the humanity of the baby, and they need to see the inhumanity of abortion. And so I think graphic images showing a baby, that's more how I'd like to say it, showing what abortion is incredibly important for the movement. And I would say, based on the experience of the live action team, like doing so many, interacting with millions of people online, working with people on boots on ground, on campuses, things like that, when you actually show people what abortion is, it's one of the biggest mind changers. We have a series called Abortion Procedures, which I encourage you all to write this down and use this with friends. Abortionprocedures.com, it actually shows medical animations of the most prevalent abortion procedures. They're not gory, but they are real. And this is incredibly powerful. We've seen, I think it's, pro-choice women, people who identify as pro-choice flip up to 20% who say they don't approve of abortion after just watching one abortion procedure video. So an increase of up to 20% of them saying, 20 percentage points of them saying, now I reject this, I don't support this, simply because they saw abortion for the first time. So yeah, we definitely need to use it as a movement. Thank you for the question.
Hi, Lila. My name is Sam Bartek. I'm also from the University of Mary, and I'm the founder of the National Young Catholic Leaders. My question is, how do we who aren't necessarily part of the media and in that world help to change the tide on that war?
Thank you, Sam. Really good question. And I'm really glad you asked it because I probably could have clarified this more. I don't think you need to be a member of any official media of any kind. I think everyone here is the media. I don't know if anyone saw Elon Musk's big X tweet, like, you are the media now, or we are the media now, like basically anyone with an X account. And he's right. Who here is on X, by the way? Oh, come on, guys. No, you're trying to graduate from your colleges and keep your sanity. I understand, and I co-sign that. That's great. But listen, anybody with a social media account is part of the media today and can break some of the most viral stories that will reach millions of people. So I think social media is incredibly powerful because it's the new media, but you are the media even in a conversation you have with a friend. So in that sense, we all have a role to play. It's not just creating content, but it's having conversations. And I would even argue, at the end of the day, conversations are even more powerful than content. But you can only have those one at a time, in real life. But that's why you guys are so powerful. You can have conversations with people to change hearts and minds. And you can use media content in the conversation potentially, but that is what is needed in order to, I believe, end abortion and create a culture of love.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, follow me on X. Lila Grace Rose on X.
My name is Dominic Holmberg. I am also from the University of Mary. I'm one of 4 people who are working with our school paper. I don't know how many marketing managers we have. There are probably dozens from the other schools. So I swear, Sam, I didn't plan this, but how can we, as people in the media, kind of in an official capacity, help win that war?
Yes, thank you. What was your name again?
Dominic.
Dominic. Okay, great. So you're running a publication at University of Mary. Well, I would say, first of all, I don't know how your ad sections or the layout works. So this is a physical publication, or is it online? Probably both.
It is physical. It's kind of small. We don't have a lot of ads, but
I would put in, obviously, write opinion pieces on life, for sure. Do reporting on what's happening with abortion and tell the real story, whether it's in your kind of more immediate community and that what you know about like abortion numbers or the local pregnancy center. If there's a local pregnancy center, you could report on what they're doing. You could certainly invite a debate if you want to get pro-choice students, if there are, hopefully not any at University of Mary, but you want to just at least prepare those that are pro-life to be able to like have good clash with people, like actually understand people's objections. Then you could invite someone to sort of like make the case, like you could do like a, question answer format in the publication saying like, okay, what about in cases of rape and incest? And then there's an answer to that. So you could use it as a tool to educate other people at the university. But you guys have Monsignor Shea, right? That's so cool. I'm jealous. You're good. You're no, I mean, you guys are the salt of the earth. Honestly, I would just treat what you're doing as like Navy SEAL boot camp. We're going to prepare to go out in the world and like change it and dominate it. So, your name Dominic. Dominate, Dominic.
So, how can we, as we graduate and move into the news media, continue that, would you say? If you were going to go and work in news media, that was what you're thinking. I would say, well, first of all, whether you work for like-minded or hostile, be true blue and, report. If you're doing reporting, there's so many different ways of media, so I guess it would depend on what you're interested in. But I would say just, whatever you're going to do, just go hard on it. Go out there. If you wanted to, try to do, mainstream media is dying. Traditional media is dying anyways. You probably know this. But we need amazing writers who are really great at telling the truth. We need amazing speakers who are really good at creating the truth. We need amazing video creators. So I would just say, get the best moral formation that you can get at school. Develop your hard skills the best you can at doing media-related things, and just go out there and be excellent and be unwavering on life. Back to J.D. Vance, not to pick on him because I love him and I think that there can be a great future for leadership for him. But, he was from... his background is obviously very unique and powerful, but he, as a Catholic convert, he should know better, right? He should have that moral formation. And then when you get out there, you get tempted, you get tested. Just do not fail the test by compromising what is true. I think that maybe that's the one message. I know I'm all over the place on this one. If you're out there going to go work in media, be true blue. Do not support what is false. Always support what is right. Always speak the truth. If you do that, you're going to make a huge difference and be a force for good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today, but please give up one more round of applause for our speakers today.
Thank you so much.